The upcoming elections on the 29th of September 2024 in Austria are not just about choosing a new government, they're about defining the soul of a nation. At the heart of this struggle is the Freedom Party of Austria, or FPO. The FPO's rise has been meteoric, fueled by a potent mix of populism and anxieties about immigration. But their history casts a long shadow. It is a history intertwined with xenophobia and a yearning for a more homogeneous Austria. The FPO's roots lie in the post-war period. Many former Nazis found a home in the FPO, drawn to its nationalist rhetoric. This association with Austria's darkest chapter has continued to haunt the party. While the FPO has attempted to distance itself from its past, critics argue that its core ideology remains unchanged. They point to the party's continued use of dog-whistle politics and its demonization of minorities. The FPO's history is not just a matter of academic debate. It has real-world consequences. The party's rhetoric has created a climate of fear and intolerance. As Austria heads to the polls on 29th of September 2024, the spectre of the FPO's past looms large. The choice is theirs. The FPO's rise is part of a broader trend of rising populism and nationalism across Europe and beyond. Fueling this trend is a complex mix of factors, including economic anxiety, cultural insecurity, and a backlash against globalization. The FPO has skillfully exploited these anxieties, presenting itself as the voice of the forgotten man. One of the key drivers of the FPO's success has been its ability to tap into fears about immigration. Austria, like many European countries, has experienced a significant influx of immigrants in recent years. The FPO has seized on these anxieties, portraying immigrants as a threat to Austrian identity and security. This rhetoric has resonated with a segment of the Austrian population, particularly those who feel left behind by globalization and social change. The FPO's success is a symptom of a deeper malaise within Austrian society. The challenge for Austria is to find a way to address the legitimate concerns of its citizens without resorting to the politics of fear and division. The FPO's stance on immigration is perhaps its most defining policy. They envision a fortress Austria, heavily guarded against the perceived threats of globalization and multiculturalism. Their rhetoric paints a picture of an idyllic Austria under siege, its culture and identity at risk of being overrun by outsiders. The FPO's proposed solutions to the immigration problem are often draconian. They advocate for drastic reductions in asylum seekers, stricter border controls, and limitations on family reunification. Beyond the economic implications, the FPO's stance on immigration raises serious concerns about discrimination and human rights. Austria deserves better than to be defined by walls and suspicion. At the heart of the FPO's ideology lies a particular vision of Austrian national identity. It is a vision rooted in a nostalgic yearning for a homogeneous past, where cultural and ethnic differences were minimal. This idealized Austria is juxtaposed against a perceived threat from multiculturalism and globalization. The FPO's definition of Austrian identity is inherently exclusive. It is based on a narrow interpretation of Austrian history and culture, one that leaves little room for diversity. This exclusionary vision is evident in their policies, which often target minorities and immigrants. Austria's strength lies in its diversity. Embracing diversity, not rejecting it, is the key to Austria's future success. The FPO's policies, particularly those related to immigration and social welfare, are often couched in economic terms. They argue that their approach will protect Austrian jobs, reduce the strain on social services, and boost the economy. However, a closer examination of their proposals reveals a different picture. Their policies, rooted in exclusion and a limited view of Austrian identity, threaten to do more harm than good to the Austrian economy. One of the most immediate impacts of the FPO's policies would likely be a shortage of skilled labor. Austria, like many developed nations, faces a demographic challenge. Its population is aging and its workforce is shrinking. Immigrants play a crucial role in filling these labor shortages, particularly in sectors like healthcare, technology, and construction. The FPO's restrictive immigration policies would exacerbate these shortages, hindering economic growth and innovation. Austria's economic future depends on its ability to attract talent, foster innovation, and remain integrated into the global economy. The upcoming Austrian elections are not just a domestic affair. The world is watching, and the outcome will have repercussions far beyond Austria's borders. An FPO victory would send shockwaves through Europe and beyond, signaling a potential shift in the continent's political landscape. It would also raise serious questions about Austria's commitment to international cooperation and its role in the European Union. The FPO's brand of right-wing populism, with its emphasis on nationalism and Euroscepticism, has gained traction in other European countries. An FPO victory in Austria could embolden similar movements elsewhere, further destabilizing the European project. Beyond Europe, an FPO victory would likely be met with concern by Austria's allies. The FPO's past associations with far-right extremism and its cozy relationship with Russia have raised eyebrows internationally. Austria has a choice to make. The stakes are high, not just for Austria, but for Europe and the world. Despite the FPO's growing influence, Austrian society is far from monolithic in its acceptance of the party's agenda. A vibrant and diverse opposition exists, encompassing a broad spectrum of political views, social backgrounds, and personal experiences. These voices of dissent, often marginalized in the face of the FPO's rising popularity, offer a crucial counter-narrative to the party's rhetoric of fear and division. One of the most vocal sources of opposition to the FPO comes from Austria's youth. Young Austrians, raised in a more diverse and interconnected world, are often at odds with the FPO's nostalgic vision of a homogeneous Austria. They see the value in diversity, embrace multiculturalism, and are wary of the FPO's divisive rhetoric. Austria's artistic and intellectual communities have also emerged as staunch critics of the FPO's agenda. They see the party's policies as a threat to freedom of expression, creativity, and critical thought. Beyond these specific groups, a broader sense of unease exists among many Austrians about the direction the FPO is taking their country. The voices of dissent in Austria are a testament to the country's democratic spirit. The FPO's rise to prominence raises fundamental questions about the future of Austrian democracy. While the party operates within the framework of democratic institutions, its critics argue that its actions and rhetoric often undermine the spirit of democracy. They point to the FPO's attempts to erode the independence of the judiciary, its attacks on the free press, and its intolerance of dissenting voices as evidence of its authoritarian tendencies. And one of the hallmarks of a healthy democracy is the separation of powers. The FPO's track record, however, suggests a disregard for this principle. During their time in government, they have been accused of attempting to influence judicial appointments, undermining the independence of the courts. A free and independent press is another cornerstone of a functioning democracy. The FPO, however, has a history of hostility towards the media. They have labeled critical journalists as enemies of the people, accused them of spreading fake news, and attempted to restrict press freedom. The FPO's actions and rhetoric pose a serious challenge to Austrian democracy. Austrians must be vigilant in defending their democratic institutions and upholding the values of tolerance, pluralism, and the rule of law. The FPO's rise and the anxieties it has tapped into have exposed deep divisions within Austrian society. These divisions, often rooted in fear, misunderstanding, and a lack of dialogue, threaten to tear at the fabric of Austrian society. Addressing these divisions requires a conscious effort to move beyond the rhetoric of fear and division and engage in meaningful dialogue aimed at finding common ground. One of the first steps towards bridging these divides is to acknowledge the legitimacy of different perspectives. The FPO's supporters are not a monolithic group. They come from diverse backgrounds and hold a range of views. Understanding their concerns, even if one disagrees with their conclusions, is essential for finding common ground. Dialogue, to be meaningful, must be based on mutual respect and a willingness to listen. Finding common ground does not mean abandoning one's principles or compromising on core values. The challenges facing Austria are complex and multifaceted. The upcoming Austrian elections take place at a pivotal moment in the nation's history. The choices made by Austrian voters will have profound and lasting consequences not just for Austria, but for the future of Europe and beyond. The challenges facing Austria are real, but so too are the opportunities. By embracing its diversity, fostering dialogue, and upholding its commitment to democratic values, Austria can build a more inclusive and prosperous future for all its citizens. Austria's diversity is its strength. Throughout its history, Austria has been a crossroads of cultures, a meeting point for East and West. This rich tapestry of cultures has enriched Austrian society, making it a vibrant and dynamic nation. Embracing this diversity, celebrating the contributions of all Austrians, regardless of their background, is essential for building a cohesive and inclusive society. Democracy is a precious and fragile thing. It requires constant vigilance and active participation. The hope for a more inclusive and prosperous Austria lies in the hands of its people. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more trend-setting content. Stay tuned for our next video on Trend Watch.